For all the things that have come out this season, there have been a few curveballs. Not the least of these being Demon Lord 2099. Now, I am not fully caught up on this series, even as of recording this video, but I am genuinely shocked that it's not getting more attention. At least until I remember that it's got to contend with Bleach, Dandadan, and ReZero. But this series has been somewhat of a sleeper pick for me this season. The basics of the series are that Demon Lord Veltal, King of the Immortals, is defeated by the hero at the end of a very long war and is resurrected 500 years later by his loyal servant Machina, only to find out that things have changed very drastically as his world and another world known as Earth were merged together in a catastrophic event that wiped out most of the population of both worlds. And that's how our dystopian science fantasy story begins. The major points of this that have made it appealing to me are the intrigue, the world building, and the characters themselves. It's a somewhat refreshing take on both fantasy and cyberpunk themes to mash them together to create a world full of fantasy races using highly advanced magical technology. The concept of the Familia, a device created by the main antagonist of the show, is basically a neurochip that allows people to use their magic. And that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the concepts that use magic in this series. Mechanized armor suits, city infrastructure, and even the internet itself are included, meaning the Demon Lord can actually hack the internet using his magic. Its setting, in spite of how dark and dirty it can be, and I mean that in the most literal, non-sexual way I can, is something that I haven't experienced much myself, so that alone makes it a bit of a novelty and thus interesting to me. Add in the intrigue of the betrayal plot and the disappearance of the Immortals that effectively act as the backbone of the story in this series, and it's suddenly become a decently well-rounded series with well-animated action sequences. Seriously, the animation is far from the best this season, particularly because of Dandadan, but it's still very good, and I did not expect that to be the case because whoever's working on it is taking it very seriously, and I respect that. But the best part of all of this for me is the characters. Rather than some haughty, arrogant, and high-handed demon lord who speaks proudly even in the most lowly of situations, a trope that I genuinely find irritating and cringy, Demon Lord 2099 presents Veltal as a leader I can genuinely understand why most would follow. He's charismatic for one, but his manner of behavior is actually more akin to that of a noble warrior than a high-handed and mighty demon lord. Sure, he has his moments in the first episode or so where he's still adjusting to this new world, but he quickly turns that around and proves that he's a much more down-to-earth character capable of assessing his position and needs and setting aside his own pride. I mean, he gets his ass kicked several times because he's not quite used to the way magic functions in this new era, absolutely fails at playing video games for the first couple of months, and even failed to see the betrayal of one of his own subordinates that is effectively what's causing all the problems now. He's hardly invincible or perfect, and these flaws show that even though he was given immense power and some very overpowered abilities too, he does not let his power completely delude him because he knows there are limitations to it, like with the Sage Eyes allowing him to comprehend things, but not being able to instantly master them. Hell, even the way he prioritizes the well-being of his subordinates, like when he insists on finding work for himself so that Machina doesn't have to support him, or how he acts entirely out of his concern for his fellow immortals who are persecuted for their very existence, makes him a largely endearing character and someone whose motives, once revealed later in the series, actually make him a very understandable person. You may not agree with what he did, particularly how his armies behaved, but the ideas he wanted to enforce are somewhat respectable. And I can go on about the other characters I like Machina and the hacker girl Takahashi, but I do not have the time in this short video to rant about that. And as far as Machina goes, this romance aspect between her and Veltal is a nice little touch as well and adds something more to the series. But that said, there is one thing to note that I feel might have been done better. The issue of Veltal's power is solved very quickly. In this instance, I don't mind because the journey of humility or even coming back into that power doesn't really seem like a huge lacking aspect of the series. It doesn't hurt it, there's no hiccups, it's not like it's a serious flaw to the series. Still, I think good things could have come from showing his rise in popularity and the strength he derives from it, alongside the building intrigue of whatever Marcus is plotting in the background that the series just didn't capitalize on. effectively take a season to rebuild Veltol's power rather than a single episode. Honestly, I don't think this is a hugely critical issue. Like I said, the story so far has had me intrigued, but I like to see these things unfold properly and be focused on in detail rather than have them made a small fraction of an episode and largely overlooked. But other than that one note, which is not a huge issue, it's a very good show, and it surprised me overall.